Welcome, everybody. Season 3 of the Be More Kansas City podcast. I'm here with Justice Horn, candidate for Jackson County Legislator.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. Welcome, Justice. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me.
First question, just right out the gate. What is a legislator for Jackson County?
Yeah, so thanks for having me. I think it's really important that you're using your platform to get folks involved with local government. But kind of to jump into it, kind of what the Jackson County Legislature is, it is the legislative body of the county. So we're out of Jackson County. Jackson County is south of the river. So the county has your county executive, which is almost like your president, and it's Frank White, who's a well-known baseball player in the area. And then you have the legislative body, your legislature. So 6 in-district legislators. You split the county up in 6 districts, and then you have your 3 at-large. So you split the county up in 3 districts. So every resident has 2 legislators, an in-district and at-large. So it's a 9 legislative body, 9-member legislative body. So you have your county executive, legislature, county sheriff, county prosecutor, law enforcement body. But I'm running to represent Jackson County's 1st district and district, so it's majority of it's Kansas City.
Okay, and 1st district. So does it extend out to like Grand? Well, yeah, Jackson County's in Grandview. Okay,
it's a very big county from Kansas City, Independence, Blue Springs, all the way to Oak Grove, Green Valley. It's a very big county.
Okay, I had no idea Blue Springs was in Jackson either. And so you're primarily in Kansas City then.
Yep.
Okay, excellent. So why do you want to be a Jackson County legislator?
Well. You know, why the county is, I've grew up throughout the county. I grew up in Independence, in government housing, Hawker Heights. So I grew up in the middle of the county. And then during my early childhood, would move out to Green Valley, so Eastern Jack, it's more rural parts. And then we'll come back and go to Blue Springs High School, or suburbs of Jackson County, and play football, and then earn college scholarship to wrestle up in South Dakota, and then would come back in my adult life and live here in Kansas City. So I have a love and have lived all over the county, as well as, my seat in particular would be the youngest legislator, be the first person of color sit in the seat, as well as, the county doesn't make a lot of decisions, but they're very big decisions, from your Jackson County Detention Center, moving out of the courthouses, local taxes, as well as, as a sports fan, the county owns the stadiums and the sports teams. So when we talk about downtown baseball, the Chiefs, and where they're going to move, the county's going to lead that conversation.
Okay. Okay. What is important to you? What would you like to tackle first and foremost as a legislator?
Yeah, so, the first thing I would tackle would be our tax assessment. It's out of whack. We just have a tax code that is outpriced and increased, and it's not been equitable. So making sure that we are, having caps for freezing taxes and keeping folks in their homes. Folks don't also understand that, as a government, we should be doing everything we can to keep people in their homes, because the homeless crisis will continue to be a problem if we don't, keep folks in their homes, as well as develop and create more low-income housing and affordable housing. So that would be the number one issue, as well as, making sure that we are moving the county to be more of a place of justice and not a place of oppression. A lot of folks who go to the county, that's where you get your eviction notice and you go to court. That's where you pay your taxes. That's also where, if you're brought in by law enforcement, that's your court date. So it's been seen historically as a place of oppression and not justice, as well as, we not only honor with 1 but 2 statues Andrew Jackson at the courthouse, who was infamous for the Trail of Tears that drove indigenous people off their land, killed a lot of them, just to put black folks in chain on that same land. So that's where we're at as a county.
Okay, so there's a huge push. I love everything that you just said, to be honest with you. The first thing you mentioned was affordable housing, low-income housing. Yep. I am a huge, obviously, I love what you just said. I don't need to expound upon that. What is the plan? How can you, as a legislator, and I guess this comes from my ignorance of what actually legislators completely do. How can you make that happen?
Yeah, so I think when we look at the county, and that's normal too. A lot of folks don't understand what the county does, because they have historically operated in the dark, as well as you don't have a lot of turnover. The guy who sits in my seat has been there for 24 years. The guy who's been to the South Kansas City and represent that seat has been there for 28 years. So you don't have a lot of, and our county executive is 82 years old.
Oh
So
God.
you have a lot of old heads who are there at the county. But how you make affordable housing an issue is, what we see is Kansas City, Independence, Lee Summit, and Green Valley are all having that conversation, and it just needs to be a countywide initiative. From that, as well as our response to crime, as well as our response to houselessness, I personally think big problems need even bigger solutions, and we can't, we're going to have a 5-year plan or a 10-year plan to tackle, because if it's bad now, we're going to beat a record next year and a record next year. And the same thing with houselessness and crime. We're going to break the record next year. And even our climate issues, we're going to keep breaking records. So it's like there needs to be some urgency with this, and I think taking it county level and bigger to swing at it, that's the only way we're going to even have any impact on it.
How important is local government in how the United States runs?
I think it's absolutely, it has more of an impact on your life, especially cities. I mean, city is your sidewalks, your codes, as well as, the county is how much taxes you pay on this property. And if you're a renter, how much your landlord pays on it, and it can usually translate over to the renters. So you see it every day, as well as, how much taxes you're paying at your grocery store, what quality of food you have there. As well as, your crime, your houselessness, access to education. That's all local issues that are paid with local dollars.
Okay. So your campaign slogan, I'm not sure if that's the right term, equity, accountability, community. That's the platform you're running on. Why?
Well, I think those are all the pressing issues at the county. Equity is, it's not, the county has been operating in quality. And to say the issues of the urban core of Kansas City and the issues of the suburbs of Blue Springs and Lee Summit and the issues of eastern Jackson County and rural Oak Grove and Green Valley is wild. That's not at all true. What equity is understanding that everyone needs a different response and different need because they're in different places, but they still need a need. Okay. So that's why, equity comes into play, as well as the tax system. Number 2, accountability. Like you stated before, a lot of people don't know what the county does, and they operate in the darkness, and that's what creates a lot of corruption at the county. There's a lot of corruption at the county. You can just do simple Google search Jackson County scandals, and you can see a lot of mismanagement funds arguing, and our past county executive sitting in jail right now. So a lot of issues like that. So from accountability, making sure how, as an activist, I led the Black Lives Matter movement. I think the only way to have accountability is you create systems of accountability. We can't just say, justice is there, so we don't need that. You want to create systems that are there just in case we have future bad eggs, and that's what you need to do. So accountability is making sure the meetings are on Monday mornings at 10 a.m. That's inaccessible to working class people. Number 2, if you want to testify before the county legislature, you have to email the chair, and they grant you that right. It's not just a right any citizen has. And then lastly, until here recently, they started live streaming the meetings, and you would have to call in like it's a dial-up and just listen to it all on phone, and that's not, that is going to breed corruption. So I think basic accountability will be creating those systems of accountability. And then lastly, community. I'm a big fan of Jackson County moving forward, but I think your big policies from tax code, detention centers, and even downtown baseball stadiums, should be discussions led by the community with long community sessions, and we let them decide, not, the Kansas City Star or big investors deciding what's good for our city. The community needs to lead those conversations.
I couldn't agree more. We give them the revenue to make all these decisions. I agree with you 100%. So to piggyback off that, one, is the turnout a problem because of simply accountability, or is it also because is there more to it, such as people aren't interested? Do you get that from young voters anyway, and people that are coming up?
Yeah, historically, yeah. But I think, here in a couple of days on August 2nd, that'll be different because, we just historically, the party and leadership has given us older people and been like, aren't you excited? And we're like, excuse my language, if no, we're not excited. It's like they see, me, I just turned 24 like 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
They see a young person of color, and someone who didn't come from money or politics. Like I was an activist, and I still am an activist, and that excites people. That's how you get local elections turnout out, is you have people who are interesting that, look like them and come from their generation. That's how you grow out the electorate. And, our regular county voters are Democrats. They're going to vote, my way, because they believe that, Black Lives Matter. They believe that, folks who are LGBTQ should be able to live in the city. They believe that women have autonomy over their bodies. And those are your county voters too.
Absolutely. So to refer back to my interview list, I kind of want to take it a little bit more, serious. Preface, I forgot to mention this. I apologize. August 2nd, vote. Can you expound upon a little bit how, what it is that's happening on August 2nd?
Yeah, so everyone who is registered to vote will be able to go to their polling place and vote. So the best way to do that is to go to sos.missouri.gov. That's sos.mo.gov. You can look at your voter registration as well as your polling place so you know where you're going. So that's what will be happening, as well as there will be, a couple of ballot initiatives. I think the only thing that's on the ballot is just the electeds.
Okay.
I think marijuana will be on November's ballot, as well as the issue to increase Kansas City Police Department budget will be on that budget too.
Really? That's very interesting. I didn't know that. Mm-hmm. So, switching gears, there was an issue that brought you in the news recently. Mm-hmm. You had your banner defaced with a demeaning homophobic slur. What was your initial feeling, firstly, when you noticed that had happened?
Well, I think it's, it's tough not to feel small, because those words were used to me at an early age when I was bullied, and it's hard not to be thrown back into that place. That words meant to cut you in half and put you down, and a lot of folks couldn't understand that, who may not be a part of the community. But it's the same thing, like as if someone called me the N-word today as a black man. It would still hurt me today the same way it would as a kid the first time it was thrown at me. And it's like, it was used to not argue with me on the policies, or, if you don't like me, run against me or vote for my opponents.
I love that, yeah.
But it's just, it's the same thing, like, oh, I'll wake up tomorrow and change that, or I'll wake up tomorrow and not be black. Like, those are things you can't even argue. So I thought it was highly unfair. And, it's shown folks that, things aren't as forward-thinking and hunky-dory as we think we are. And it's the same thing when we painted the 6 Black Lives Matter murals across Kansas City. Folks didn't think that was necessary, that it was over. And, the one in Briarcliff immediately got defaced and was vandalized. So it's like, thanks for proving our point why these issues are so important. I also think any type of progress isn't easy, or would have been done already. So, getting pushed back and getting targeted and getting hated at,
kind of part of it.
Yeah.
Man, that's tough. That's extremely unfortunate, but the way you handled all of that whole situation, I was tuned in the entire time, was admirable. Nothing but respect.
I think the community will come out and prove whoever did this wrong. And they may have tried to take me down for one day, but they're going to have me as their legislator for 4 years.
Hell yeah, Justice. So what did that tell you about the community that you want to work for?
Well, it showed me that, we still have work to do. It's so more than just, and that's a lot of the issue is, I've personally worked to try and get Kansas City to be who it wants to be, because we say we're a forward-thinking, welcoming city, but it's so much more than pride flags and Black Lives Matter signs. It is actually passing policy that truly create an environment where Black Lives Matter. Passing legislation that truly makes kiddos feel safe in their schools and feel that they're seen and welcome in their communities. So from personally helping create the LGBTQ commission to getting Juneteenth as a citywide holiday to climate emergency and Indigenous Peoples Day in Kansas City. Those are all things we've all said that makes a welcoming city. So pushing the city to actually be there. But it showed me, it's so far from that, but we need representation. It's so much further from us to be allies, but I think we're now in the place where that firsthand experience and representation is so much more important now, because we're in crazy times. It's hard not to think the national conversation and even the state isn't going to bleed into our community.
Yeah,
and it is. That's what's going to happen. So we need to stand strong against that and not continue to make things a new normal. And that's what my biggest worry was that this was going to be normal for any person of color, young person, or queer person running that. This is just normal. This is something you'll get when you run. It's not. So that's why I wanted to make it a bigger deal, because what society does with mass shootings or anything, we try and heal and then move forward. We don't stop it, challenge it, and say no. We always try and create the new normal, because it gets us back to being comfortable. Being uncomfortable is challenging and, making sure that that's not the new normal. And that's what we have to do, because it was my banner, then it was a church, then it was a streetcar stop. I mean, what's next?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't hear about the streetcar stop.
They had an all are welcome sign, and someone ripped it off and just vandalized it. And it's like, that was just 3 things in 1 week. It's like, if we don't call it out and stop, what's next? And it just does that. It's just, that's how you have to stop that. That's what you have to do.
And representation, you touched on, that was a perfect segue. What, and it goes to, so if you were elected, you'd be the first queer person elected to the legislation. In terms of representation, why or why not is that important?
Well, it's important because, when you're, in some way a trailblazer, you represent way more than just your district. Any issues that are going to become issues, which they will be, from, the state legislature is probably going to try and target trans kids and is going to make that an issue. Our Senate candidates are going to make that an issue. To even here locally, you got school districts banning any mention of the word gay, or you have in Green Valley them banning safe space stickers, or an independents banning books. Like, it's, we need way more than just activists. We need folks with political power and positional power who can fight that stuff, because that's how you keep an oppressed people down, is when they don't have a seat at the table. And I tell people that all the time. If we're not at the table, we're on the menu. And this year in politics, our community is on the menu. Folks get this weird itch about targeting trans kids and trans athletes. When Misha, I was a college football player, a high school football player. Misha, there's only like 6 trans kids in the entire state. And it's like, 1, that's not an issue. And 2, the farmer who's suffering in rural Missouri isn't like, dang nabbit, them trans swimmers, why I can't get any, revenue on my farm. It hurts all of us. And it's not an issue, and it's political. And it's, that representation is important, not only for us to defend ourselves, but 2, to fend off the BS when people want to make an issue of that. It's not an issue.
Okay. So, who do you look up to?
I would say my parents.
Parents?
I probably talk to my mom twice a day.
Why is that?
I'm just she's made me into who I am today, and they've made a lot of, sacrifices for me. And, I even their stories, what I want for every kid. I grew up in independence and government housing, and, they could have kept us there, but my mom worked her tail off and got us into the burbs. And, that's, it's created so many opportunities for me, not only to go to college and have a scholarship, and even, work in government and be a candidate for office. And it's like, if I was still there in independence in that environment, I probably would have had a completely different life. And I understand that. And that's, something I want for every kid, because it's tough to say and it's honest, but you are a product of your environment.
Oh.
And that's, kids shouldn't just have that life just because of the world they're born in. And, we should try and change that and make opportunities for every kid at all levels, or in the burbs and Eastern Jackson County, or in the urban core.
100% agree. We need to back each other up. We're all Kansas Cityans, and if I've been saying this, I've been thinking this, if we claim to be for Kansas City, that includes every single person in Kansas City, in the metro. That includes everybody. So, yeah. How important is forgiveness for you?
I think, it's important, for me as an individual because, I always ask myself and pray about it. I don't want to be bitter, and this world is going to try and make you bitter. There's just so many crazy things happening. It seems like there's shootings every day. Climate's out of control. Things are crazy. And forgiveness is understanding, one, that people may act a certain way towards you because you don't know their story, and two, forgiveness is the only way you keep yourself sane. So I think it's absolutely important to heal because it's a process of healing, because our world's in the process of hurting with a lot of things. So I think that's really the only it's important because that's the only really remedy we have for a lot of things that can create harm to you, as well as, there's just a lot going on. Yeah. And for us to hold on to things and get bitter and be angry, and this is, on both sides of the political spectrum too, just doesn't help. It's, and I learned this in the activist space. Even if you're on the right side, want to keep everything at a low boil. When you escalate things, you can't control that. Mm-hmm. So, how you continue to become a part of the escalation is when you hold on to things, you get angry, you get bitter, you want to win and they lose. And if you operate with that, even if you're right, it's constant back and forth, and that's how the temperature rises. Yeah,
100%. I mean, some have to, like you said, be on the right side. Like sometimes people just want to see the person lose, which is counterproductive.
And it just doesn't help. I mean, it makes folks think that there's a battle, and it also shows and creates what happened to me, where folks think advancement is a de-advancement of them. It creates the environment we have, and it's also why. It's just doing the work, and it's simple. And, probably because my upbringing of not having just grown up in the urban core or Eastern Jack, but like a lot of the legislative things I've helped done with Juneteenth, a lot of our Northland City Council members were not a fan of it or didn't get it, or some of our South Kansas City reps didn't like it. But what I did was I did the work and sat down with them and explained why this is important. So they didn't feel that, although I knew I had the votes, I could have just legislated and I'd be like, I won, you lost. But a lot of these things get better acceptance in the community when everyone feels a part of it. So I did the work to make sure it was unanimous. Juneteenth, unanimous. Climate emergency, unanimous. And you get votes from Northland, Southland, East and West of Truce. And folks will move the needle when they feel like they were part of it. Then, there are 12 city council people and I have 7 votes, and just passing it and I win, you lose. Folks don't like that, and they'll get you back another time. Yeah. And it's you don't want to create enemies, and it's when folks feel like they're part of it and you do the work, you bring them along, even if they disagree, they're gonna be your allies in the future.
100%. Did you notice how was it difficult to get the naysayers to sway, or
no? It's just understanding their perspective, because you even have Northland Council folks who, there's Kevin O'Neill, who's a big union guy, or Dan Fowler, big ally, and they just have limited experience, and you can't hold that against people and make them feel bad about that, because they can't change where they grew up or change what school they went to as a kid. So you just meet them where they're at, and empathize with that and move them to where they should be at. It's not on them that we have an education system that didn't want to recognize Juneteenth, or that it was a day when the last slave was freed, and they think because they just weren't taught that in school, and I shouldn't hold that against them, because that's not anything that was in their power. So getting them there, that this is a day that recognized the last slave in bondage in Texas, and they finally got it, like, wow, I should be on the right side of that because it's slavery. It's so it's like this stuff, like, but it's, I can't say Juneteenth and I automatically think folks know what I'm talking about, and it's because of the current situation we're in. So again, it goes back to doing the work to bring people there.
Man, I love it. I love you, Justice. This is you're an incredible person, man. So, in terms switching it to policy to wrap this up, the tax assessment hall. What was that, and is that something that's going to happen often?
Yeah. So it ended yesterday, and what we're going to do is put out a policy plan for what we would introduce on day one if I was elected to overhaul the tax assessment. But, on the greater side, it's, meant to be an example on how, because I personally believe how you campaign is how you govern. And, I could be like, oh, I have these many degrees and I know what I'm talking about, and not have anyone who has real world experience come forward and share their thoughts. And we've had that. We've had politicians who've thought for communities, not listened to communities. So why we did that is because, if you're lock in step with the community, that policy is 10 times more impactful because it's exactly what the community needs. Because, again, in activist work, I've learned that if you're not moving as a collective, even if your intentions are pure of heart and it's not centering those voices who are disproportionately affected, you can actually do harm to that community, even if your intentions are right. So that's why it's important to move with the community. So why those tax assessment town halls are important is because it gave folks who have real world experience, who could come forward and craft this policy, because that's who it's impacting. It's their policy. So that's why we did that. And it was an example of how I plan to govern on everything from tax assessment, detention center, and, and downtown stadiums. We should have 6 or 7 community forums, which I know are going to be packed across the city on that.
No doubt about that. Everybody's involved in that conversation.
So it's just stuff like that. And it's folks want to be part of the conversation, and we should let them. It's their community. We're about to drop a stadium in, or thinking of doing so.
No doubt. I love it. So in terms of a policy plan that you've got, I've got here, you would like to see the gender identity of an individual to be placed in detention centers rather than their assigned at birth identity. Why is that important?
And that's a very it's kind of in the weeds policy, but what we've seen is the detention centers we're building today are already single stall facilities. So really the idea of having single stall women or men's ward just doesn't make any sense. It's one detention center. So I think having that, as well as it's created a lot of risk for folks, folks who have been trans or have been more aligned with their birth certificate rather than their identity today. A lot of those folks have been placed in those wards and have been murdered. So it's just even procedural. It doesn't make any sense, because as a detention center, we're supposed to detain people humanely. And then number 2, we have the infrastructure for us to do it already. I mean, they're single stall facilities, and it's just us changing an internal policy and doing that. And, for folks who, and we did it at the city, for folks who get all weird about it, it's like your bathroom at home is all gender. It's not anything crazy.
Interesting.
Like your bathroom at home doesn't have a men or women sign. It's one stall. And it's...
When you put it like that, it's like it's another way to think about it. It's just a different perspective.
Yeah,
it's very interesting. Now, but I think you kind of touched on it a little bit. There are some people that might say it would create more violence against trans individuals or different identifying individuals. What would you say to that?
For the
individual that it was assigned male and identifies themselves as female, and they're placed into a female detention, or vice versa. So one might argue that there might be more violence pressed upon these individuals that identify differently than their assigned birth.
Well, I think, per state statute, our only obligation as a county is to detain people humanely. And if we know that per data, when we do that, it leads to folks getting murdered, that is on us. I mean, we're not even... having our obligation as a county to detain folks, as well as, that goes into another issue. The Jackson County Detention Center isn't a jail. Why folks are there is because they're detained. And, if you know anything about cash bail, it makes it a crime to be poor. These folks are brought up on nonviolent marijuana cases or brought up from a traffic thing and don't have any money. If I was put up in a police car, I couldn't put together, you can't even pay with cash, you can't even pay with card, it's all cash. So cash bail bond on like $15,000, I couldn't put that together. I'd probably sit in the detention center like all of them, and it makes it a crime to be poor. So again, 80% per the Kansas City bail bond fund, 80% of those in the detention center are not even charged. They're detainees. That's not a jail that have been charged. So again, that even, further validates that it's our duty to take care of these folks. They're not even charged, they're not criminals. You're innocent until you're proven guilty. And what usually happens is it's filled with young men who are not able to pay the cash bond. So it's, we'll always have a detention center. I believe that, because we need to take folks who are disruptors of communities, people who are pedophiles, who are shooters, who are, not good for the community. We'll always have that. But the majority of our jail is so jam-packed with folks who are there because of cash bail. That's why people get to run wild. And people need to understand, why can't we just throw them all in there? It's already maxed capacity. Okay. And we can't actually put in shooters and folks who are disrupting communities because it's filled with folks who can't pay cash bail.
Okay. And you are, just so I get this clear, you don't even, it's not even the detention center's job to worry about gender. Is that where you're coming from, kind of?
Well, it's our job to worry about that, to take care of them.
Oh, I see.
If we know that we're putting them in harm's way, we should know that. I mean, there's plenty of data and it's public knowledge that folks have, done that. I mean, there's a lot of things that need to be, updated there. They've had COVID outbreaks, mold outbreaks, guards who were just stabbed. And it's not a good place for anyone there.
Yeah. No kidding. That's pretty obvious when you put it like that. Yeah. Okay. Justice, you've been putting signs up the past couple weeks now. Mm-hmm. We're rearing up to the election. A couple week and a half at this point. Uh-huh. How can somebody buy a sign-up place out in front?
Well, they could just go to justicehorn.com.
Okay.
And you can see everything there. And I think it's the third slot on the main page. You can just buy a sign and come put it out.
Excellent. Yeah. And you know what I respect about you is you showed up and you don't really give a shit how you look.
Yeah.
It's all policy. It's all who you are. I love that.
I'm not trying to be a politician. I'm trying to be like your bro that happens to be in the legislature. That's what it is.
I love it so much, Justice. I just love that. Because I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting suit, tie, ready to go, and turn it on.
This is why people like me, because I don't have a stick up my ass.
Excellent. Well, that's about wraps it up, Justice. Y'all, again, August 2nd, very important day. Like Justice was just talking about, local government has way more of an effect than federal law probably ever would. This is your home. You should pay attention more to laws, I think, anyway, that happen in your home, that are being passed in your home, than worry about what's going on nationally. It's give and take. I disagree. You should worry about national too, but not as much as local, if you were to get involved. August 2nd, find your polling place. What was the website, Justice?
sos.missouri.gov.
sos.missouri.gov. sos.mo.gov. Check it out. Register. You got to get registered first. And then you can find Justice Horn at
justicehorn.com.
Yeah. At Justice Horn on Instagram, everywhere?
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Well, you got a very unique name. It's probably nobody's ever taken it ever, right?
I hope not.
If they do, then too bad. You got it. Mm-hmm. So at Justice Horn everywhere. Follow him. You post all the time, so it's really easy to keep up with you. Anything else you'd like to say before we cut off?
No. I and even to that point, again, how you campaign is how you govern. I want folks to know I'm going to be at everything, as well as if you want to press me on things, you could comment under thing and say anything, and be like, I don't like your policy, or I don't like how you voted this, and I'm not scared of it. I've never been scared of this community, and that's how you create accountability, is creating systems accountability. And social media, I know it's kind of annoying, but we meet every portion of the community where they're at because of that. Some folks may just have Facebook, or some folks who are younger may just have Instagram. Some folks are just on Twitter, just see the updates, and it's how it should be.
Yeah,
we should be accessible.
Absolutely, 100%, 100%. Thanks, y'all. Check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts at Be More Kansas City, or go to BeMoreVentures.org and just check us out. See what we're doing. We're ramping up a lot now that we've got another studio. So keep up with us. Thanks, Justice.
Thanks,
man. I love you, bro. You're fucking awesome.
I appreciate that.